Barry, I was almost late for this interview, man.
That's frightening.
I know, because this is Travis Vengroff. He's here. Travis Vengroff is here from Fool and Scholar Productions. You heard the show The White Vault? Actually, yesterday I downloaded all the episodes of season 1 of The White Vault, and I didn't get to listen to him. Sorry, Travis.
That's okay. It's quite gripping. You'd be sucked in all the way through if you started, so it's probably a good thing.
I'm looking forward to that because I'm actually in a few days I'm going to be traveling to Las Vegas, so I'll have time on the plane and all that. So, all right, we're going to start this thing. Are you ready? Let's go.
I'm ready.
Ow! Oh my goodness, you must have butt dialed this show for some reason. But anyway, welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. My name's Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for medium and large companies and also some authors. Every week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. We talk shop with podcast producers and engineers and other specialists. I have a background in audio engineering in the music business. And when I entered podcasting, I realized that a lot of the knowledge and experience I have in my brain and in my heart, I can pass that on to podcasters and podcast producers so that they can produce much better sounding audio and produce it in less time. Time is money, right, Barry?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
Wait, I'm Travis.
That's right.
Yes.
No,
yes,
Travis.
time is absolutely money.
Travis, meet Barry. Barry, Travis.
Hey, Barry. Good to meet you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's Barry. There's Travis. Oh, you thought I was talking to you?
I was confused. I was like, oh no.
See, I didn't warn you, and you haven't checked out the show yet. So, all right. So Travis Vengroff is here today. I don't really have any announcements except that you probably already know that I run Podcast Engineering School. And if you or anyone you know wants to learn how to produce podcasts on the highest possible level, at the highest quality, that's what my school teaches. All right, well, Travis is here, and Travis is all into sound design. He's produced a bunch of audio dramas. I mentioned The White Vault, which is the one I want to start listening to. I meant to start listening yesterday, and dude, I like pulled it up in Podcast Addict, which is my app, and in the app itself, it was like, oh, there's 9,000 people subscribed or something. And I was like, dude, your podcast is huge.
Well, thank you very much. We actually just passed 1.4 million downloads. We're excited for seeing where the future takes us.
Jeez, that's serious, man. Like, because the thing is, like, obviously, Podcast Addict is just one app, right? It's just one app, and it's not even a popular one. So if 9,000 people are subscribed there, that's awesome. So congrats on that. Your company is Fool and Scholar Productions. I'll have the links and everything in the show notes. And you guys were just announced as an honoree for the Webby Awards for music and sound design in podcasting. Congrats, man.
Thank you. It was actually, they had to rush the awards so that when I got on the show, it could be, I'm joking, but.
That's right. Your agent had to call them and be like, look, dude, we need an answer now. He's about to go on the air with Chris Curran.
We got to have this refractal.
Exactly. Oh, so not. Anyway, The White Vault, I'm really psyched to check it out. I listened to the little trailer. It was like a minute and a half, and a typical trailer, like I heard a bunch of different voices and I was like, well, who's that? Who's that? And like, of course you don't answer those questions in the trailer. You got to listen to it.
Oh, heck yeah. It's a mystery. It's a fun horror-filled mystery of things. And you'll actually feel like you're there. Like when they open the door, you'll feel like the wind hit you and stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun.
Right? And it's set way up north. Is it northern Norway or something?
Yeah, actually, there's an island off of Norway called Svalbard, and it's as far north as you can go and still have people. The polar bears actually outnumber the population of humans on the island.
Oh, jeez. There you go. We gotta get polar bears to start checking out podcasts. Man, come on. All right, so let's do the speed round. We're gonna do the speed round. What we want to know is just take a quick run through all your equipment and workflow. So you're about to record something. You're probably recording like maybe a voiceover, or because you don't really do interviews with audio dramas, right?
No, not typically. Only for like question and answer episodes, and those are fairly rare. So we're recording sound effects. We're recording voice actors. And that's really the two things that we do record.
Okay, cool. So, but right now you're on a mic and you're putting it into an interface into your computer. So take us through your signal chain and then also quickly through the post-production, what software you use and all that.
Sure. I'm going to start with the wall. So leaving the wall, we go into an M80X. Basically, I found that the current in my house was inconsistent. So it is a power regulator to make sure I don't get that humming sound. From there, we plug in a Focusrite 6i6. It's a Scarlett. It's the interface through which
wait a second.
USB is in a computer.
Hold on. You didn't say the microphone.
Oh, I was getting to the microphone. I apologize. The Focusrite plugs into a Rode NTK microphone. It's a powered microphone. It's a tube mic, so it has to warm up for a few seconds after you turn it on, and it gets a little bit brighter, and it's really nice. And then I'm plugging it into a computer, which is an Asus computer with a Core i7. I probably overkill for what I do. And then that goes into a software called Mixcraft, which is an editing and also recording software. You can do even mixing in it. I don't do mixing in it. Mixing takes place in Reaper, and we export it from Reaper into an MP3. And that's kind of our workflow. We also have a second workflow, which is just an H4n or an H5n. I own both. I use them interchangeably for different circumstances to record sound effects, which goes into a little like a flash drive. What do you call those things? SD card, and they plug right into the computer.
Got it. You said H4n and what else?
And an H5n. We just got the H5n in October, and we upgraded. But the H4n, I love it as well, so I'll still use that from time to time, or use both to get some good sound effects in the field.
Got it. And you must have a bunch of different mics for the field recording?
Just those two, actually. They work really well. It requires the little fuzzy thing on top to break the sound of the wind.
Yes.
So you're not just getting...
Yeah. Yeah, the windscreen. Or the little
windscreen protectors.
Little furry cap you put on that thing.
Yeah, those are really key. So that's basically my setup in a nutshell, and that's what I do. And soon I'll have a room to record in. Right now, it's under construction.
I know you sent a picture of your setup, and you want to describe it to the people? I don't know if you wanted
to. Yeah, sure. It's like a toilet seat. I was turning a bathroom into a recording studio, so I put a piece of wood on a toilet seat that's about 4 feet long on either side, and I have to counterbalance my right hand because it's got the mouse and I'm putting pressure on there with the interface so that I don't topple my computer, which is also on top of the wood. So it's a little tumultuous right now. We got the toilet out in the last bit, and I put a floor in, and it's sound tech, and soon I'll have some recording stuff and some furniture in there. But right now I'm just kind of on my knees. So
cool. You know, I was going to ask you from the picture, you said you're going to turn that into your studio, and I was like, are you going to keep the toilet? But no, it's already gone.
It's gone. We ripped out the floor. It's no longer that weird, probably asbestos stuff. It's now like a sound tech thing, which is supposed to be sound dampening, sound resistant, and it'll mute the sounds of the actual bathroom from the floor below.
Okay, cool. Oh, Barry just said he has something. Barry, you have something you want to say to Travis? You have more suggestions of what he needs in his new studio? Okay, go ahead, Barry. Tell him what is he going to need?
You're going to need a couple of horses or a couple of mules.
Oh, really? In the studio? All right. Anything else, Barry?
Saws, hammers, nails.
That's actually true. Wait, the sound clip made sense. Anything else, Barry?
Monkeys, pumas. Yeah.
All right. And anything else? Seriously, Barry, finish it up.
Beans, coffee, and biscuit. And a little piece of fatback.
That sounds like breakfast. Are you going to eat breakfast in your new studio, Travis?
Absolutely. And I'll record it because I have to eat sounds for the show because people eat on our show.
Oh, that's so interesting. So have you amassed like a bajillion little sound clips?
About maybe 40 gig. And then like the stuff that I record is probably only maybe 2 of that gig.
Wow. Okay. And so how do you name the files to keep track?
I keep them in folders. So if it has to do with an impact sound, I'll have like a folder for impact sounds. That could be everything from metal to glass to things that get broken. I've got other folders that are more vocal based. So if it's anything to do with the human voice, it's in a vocal track. Footsteps get their own folder. I also use a digital, like a MIDI, if you're familiar with that, like a keyboard. I can do digital footsteps as well. But I've got some actual ones recorded because you can't really fake snow so well, or like walking through puddles. So basically mass sorting by type and however my brain thinks of them.
And you've been recording most of the clips you're recording yourself through your H4 or H5.
Yeah, and also the regular microphone as well, the Rode NTK. It's really good for a lot of sounds, but if you need to get outside of the inside of your house, I highly recommend getting something handy because it's a huge pain otherwise to get long enough mic cables.
Right. So let's talk about this Rode NTK. I mean, is this like, I'm going to look it up right now, but is this like a large diaphragm condenser, like a vocal mic?
It is a vocal mic. It was actually, we got a sponsorship from Rode and they gave it to us. It was the more expensive one that I could find that was the great quality that I kind of need for doing voice work because I'm a voice actor as well. And also that would be robust enough to capture the sound design stuff that I need and be warm enough in places. Because you can record a sound effect and it won't sound like it's in the same room as you. Even if it is, if you're recording it with the wrong mic, it has to sound like it's in your face, or else, when your actors record with a good microphone, your sound effects feel disconnected in a way.
Right. Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. So if the voice actors sound really good, but then if you play a sound clip that just was recorded with the wrong mic and it just doesn't sound good or sounds like far away, then it's like a mismatch.
Totally. And the reverb you can always edit things like reverb to add more, but you can't take things away. So always thinking in an additive quality, like how can I get the most dry sound? How can I get it to sound like it's the closest to the mic it can possibly, because I can always make it sound further by lowering volume or panning it or, adding reverb or stuff. So that's kind of always the goal. And I do a lot of motion sounds too, which is just me playing with like a coat, like those sorts of sounds. Playing with my coat or like with a belt or just different sounds that you hear when people walk or kind of stand awkwardly, or shoes that kind of squeak when they're, again, just standing in place. It's these little motion sounds that you don't think of when you're, for instance, walking through the snow, the sound that your jacket makes, or if you tripped over one of the steps. Wait,
so it's sounding, so do you literally, when you shoot a scene, well, wait, You're not shooting a scene. Why am I thinking video? You're doing video.
Well, we're going to record the scene. We've got the different voices. They all send me one voice clip at a time, and I edit them together to sound like they're having a conversation as opposed to talking to themselves.
No, I was just about to ask a dumb question. I'm like, how do you, because for some reason I was thinking you were shooting video, and I was like, if you're shooting video, do you use any of the actual sound from the scene, or do you just reconstruct everything, like someone playing with their belt or their jacket? But obviously, frankly, when you're doing it in audio only, you have to create every sound.
Yeah, it's completely artificial, every last sound, and you don't want a lot of those sounds in the performance if it's not a vocalization. Like even if you have someone crawling on the ground in a scene, you don't want the sound of them crawling, you just want the sound of like their breath and them talking and the sounds they're exerting, but you don't want any of the artifacts from like them touching the floor, because maybe the person's crawling through a metal grate, or maybe they're crawling on gravel, and it's not the same surface as your studio.
Hey, if you ever need, here, I'm going to give you a sound clip right now, okay? Freebie. Okay, ready?
Ready.
Okay, if you ever need this.
I could use that in almost any one of our horror shows.
Well, I just thought, like, what am I good at? And then that's what came to mind. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah, screaming is actually really tough. I've had to find screaming doubles for some of our actors. I can't say who because it would be insulting to them, but it's a hard thing to get, like, actual emotion that's on the extreme end of things from people, even very experienced and seasoned voice actors.
Wow, I've never heard that. A screaming double.
Yeah, like I'll go online and I'll search through different libraries, because they have them online on places like Sonus or freesound.org or podcastmusic.com, which isn't just music, it's a lot of sound effects too. And they have thousands and thousands of screams, and you kind of go through like the age and the type of scream and, male, female. And then as you're listening, you're like, oh, that kind of sounds like this actor. That sounds exactly like this actor. And then you're just like, okay, I'll pay $2 for this scream that I can, or the set of screams that I can now use over the course of a season.
See, if I bought a set of screams, like I would just feel the need to use all of them.
Absolutely.
I mean,
but it's funny, like the writer I work with, my wife, Caitlin, she's the scholar in Fool and Scholar Productions. I'm the fool in Fool and Scholar. And she'll just give me like random scripts for like, oh, there's, incoherent screaming from like the other side of a telephone from like 30 people for 15 seconds. And it's like, okay, well, I have all these scream libraries. Now is my time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
It's a lot of fun.
All right. So the Rode NTK, I'm liking the look. It looks like a serious large diaphragm vocal mic like that you would find in in some of the best studios in the world. That's what it looks like. And
it comes with the windbreak as well. The windbreak's awesome. I love it.
The windbreak?
The pop filter on it is it's made of like a metal, and it's my voice is very breathy for some reason, and it happens to be particularly effective at reducing my breathiness.
That's cool. Yeah, that's important too. That's because that's like most people don't think of that, right? The plosives or the breath. And then
absolutely.
Well, and that's the mistake all the amateurs make when they use a Blue Yeti, right? And they don't have a pop filter and all that. So
and those pick up big time, and that can ruin great audio.
Yeah. Then you got to jump through hoops to try to fix it, which you can never really fix it 100%.
Agreed.
All right, so you got that awesome vocal mic. That is pretty cool. And it has its own power supply. So for people, if you're listening to this and you're not sure what a power supply is, the old tube microphones, like it would be a big vocal microphone, a large diaphragm condenser, and then there'd be the cable you attach to it was not an XLR cable. It was like, I don't know, there was like a 20-pin connector cable. Big cable.
Oh, this has one of those. It's got like the multi-pin guy. It's just like that, but it's for its own power supply. So it's really easy.
Yeah, and it's like 20 pin, and it's probably thicker than an XLR cable, right?
Actually, it's the same thickness. I don't know how they did it, but over the years they've adjusted the technology. Also, I will say in music, I do use this microphone for music, for recording accordion, violin, and cello, and it's awesome.
Yeah. So the mic plugs in with that special cable to this box, which is a power supply. And this little box supplies power to the microphone, right? Because it's a condenser mic. It needs power. And Absolutely. Then also coming there on that box, the power supply itself, there's an XLR output. And that's where you put the XLR cable in, and that's where you bring the audio out, and then you plug it into your interface or your mixer or wherever you want to bring it. So
yes, and that is exactly what I have, and I've got mine on a shoe rack because it's a 2-level shoe rack, and I can slide these things in, and they look less intrusive.
Yeah, so I want to actually ask you about the ideas you have for your studio, but let's get through your equipment signal chain first. So you got the Focusrite 6i6, which our good buddy Ralph M. Rivera just bought recently, or by the time this comes out, he'll have had it for like 4 months or something. I'm so ahead on recording. Like, I'll tell you when I'm recording this. I'm going to give you the date. You ready?
Ready.
Brace yourself.
Okay.
Well, Travis, you're here with me, but the people don't know.
Okay. Well, I was thinking of the release date. I was going backwards.
Yeah, no, the release date is going to be around August 1st.
Okay. So
and today is April 3rd. So what's that? May, June, July. 4 months. I'm 4 months ahead.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's a huge achievement.
Well, the thing that helped me too is that I started putting out my guest interviews every other week. So instead of doing it every week, every week is tough. I don't care what you do. Anything you do every week, that takes a significant amount of time to do. It's like when you start, you can do it for, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, no problem. But you get up to 20, 30, 40, and it's like, that's when you miss 1 week, and you're like, I'll do one next week. But
we're every 2 weeks, and I totally feel the same pressure. Even at 2 weeks, it's tough. Huge respect.
So wait, you don't produce all the episodes first and then release them one by one?
We've released an episode every 2 weeks for the last 4 years.
Okay, so you're just constantly producing audio and trying to stay ahead. And what's the most you've had done in the can and finished?
I was once ahead for 4 weeks.
Okay.
That was the best I'd ever done. We usually have the recordings for a whole season at the same time, and we'll have that maybe a month or two ahead of the first episode's release.
Okay.
For a season.
Then it's just the post-production, which is the post-production for audio dramas it takes a lot longer than the actual recording. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're talking 20 plus hours per 20 minutes.
Wow. Yeah. Cause there's so much to it and not just audio, it's story. It's the actual record, the performance of the actors, like, right. And pacing and
the writing has to be good as
wow.
well. Yeah, the spacing of it, the pacing of it, the sound effects. There's ambient layers, so you can hide kind of people who don't record on good microphones. You can blur that sometimes by putting like background noises like wind, or they're in a room filled with a lot of computers making noise or whatever that is, or sometimes music. And then you have the actual sound effects that interact with the pacing as well, because you don't want the hit to happen after the scream. You want it to happen before the scream or during the scream, things like that.
Right. So
and then retakes.
Oh, retake. Oh, how much of that do you do? Like 7 weeks later, you're like, oh, those few lines you read are not good. Can you redo them? How much of that do you do?
I would say less than 10 lines per episode out of 20 minutes. And it's usually just like one actor misread a scene or, didn't quite go as far as they needed to, like yelling over wind. We have a bunch of scenes where there's heavy wind happening on the White Vault show. So one of the actors will be like, oh, I'm yelling over the wind. And everyone else is, oh, I'm yelling over the wind to reach you guys. Are you okay?
Right.
And, you need to have everyone else, that one person has to now up their level to that extreme. And I'll give them a demo of what we've recorded and, where the scene is, and they can kind of hear, oh, I need to be much louder.
That is so interesting.
Things like that. Yeah, it's a lot of, if you put it in the script, it can eliminate a lot of that by just kind of giving the actors like, okay, you're really going to have to yell over the wind for this scene, or things like that. You can also sometimes just edit around retakes and like, oh, we don't really need that line. Or, oh, maybe this character has 2 lines. I'm not in the script. Maybe I can just fill in those 2 lines and have this person come back another season or something because they're in another country or they're busy. Things like that.
I see. I just thought, Travis, the grunt that I gave you earlier, you can use that in high wind situations.
Totally. It's entirely appropriate.
And it's appropriate. It should be. I'm assuming it is. And here's the thing. If you want to sneak my grunt into a future episode...
Oh, that'll be done. I could fit that into the next one I'm doing, right? It can be on our show on next Tuesday, not this Tuesday, but the next Tuesday.
You should approach like celebrities, like big celebrities, and be like, look, for our podcast, I just need you to grunt really loud.
That would be awesome. They're hard to reach. We've worked with a few celebrities in the past. Eric Nelson has been really awesome from All My Children, and the guy from The Walking Dead and Borderlands and Nancy Drew. But when you get like outside of video game voice acting, they get really tough to reach.
Right.
For some reason.
All right, so back to the 6i6. And I know we're jumping around a little bit, but, come on, guys. I'm a little excited to talk to Travis about this. All right.
And we're having fun.
So we got the 6i6. Now, the Focusrite 6i6, it's a Scarlett 6i6. So it's the same series as the very popular Scarlett 2i2. And
yeah, and I've got a first generation even, so mine isn't even quite as flashy as the second edition, which is supposedly it's actually a lot smaller, but it's very pretty.
When you look at the front of the 2i2 versus the 6i6, they look similar because they both have 2 XLR inputs on the front and then, a monitor volume and stuff like that. But the 6i6 has 2 headphone jacks, and that's actually one thing that Ralph M. Rivera loved about it. And on the back, it also has 2 more line inputs, I think. 2 or 4?
I'll check. Hold on one second.
I think it's
4.
2.
It has, 2 inputs that are standard and a bunch of 1/4 inches.
Right. Yeah, so anyway, the 6i6, that's, how long have you had that?
I've had that since they started making it. I bought it like the first month that came out. I think it's, again, like 4 or 5 years, actually 5 or 6 years. I've had it forever.
Oh, that's cool.
But the two headset inputs are really what sold me on it. because I like to listen to things with other people listening to things sometimes in music, but not so much in audio drama because I'm really boring editing the same voice over and over.
Got it. So, right, when you're playing music or mixing music, you and a buddy can each have headphones on and control your own volume.
Yeah, and they've got their own separate volume levels for the headset, so you can make sure you're not blasting yourself out or your friend.
All right, so then you got the 6i6 plugged into your Asus computer, which I actually used an Asus as my main production computer for about, probably about 5 years. And it was just about a year and 3 months ago I switched over to Mac.
Oh, wow.
So
I switched over only about a year and a half ago because the previous computer was stabbed with a sword while recording some stuff.
Really?
Yes, it was quite unfortunate.
Wow, but a real sword?
Yeah, I happen to own a couple of swords, and I was doing a stupid fantasy thing that wound up ultimately not happening because I destroyed the hard drive. But yeah, I swung too hard, and I didn't block hard enough, and I hit. I didn't hit the microphone; I hit the computer. So that was.
Oh man! Wow, that's not on video, is it?
Unfortunately not. And like the sound effect wasn't even very good. It's just the sound of me crying for like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Some authentic crying, right?
Yeah. But geez. That's why I've started moving away from, if it's going to be a violent thing, it doesn't happen near the computer. Use the H4n or the H5n.
Oh, that is funny. All right. So now you got the Asus. It's a laptop?
It is. It's a really light laptop as far as they're concerned, and I use it a lot on airplanes because I'm always editing all the time, and it fits easily on an airplane, compact editing, but it's also like a full-size laptop, so you feel like you're actually able to get the job done. And the processing power and speed is good as long as you get one that's got what you need to get the job done. Right.
Okay, so then you normally record, when you're recording on your computer, into Mixcraft software.
Yeah, I didn't realize this until just this 2 months ago, but apparently Mixcraft is one of the top 3 for editing complex audio. The Reaper is a great one. Pro Tools is great. Mixcraft is cheap and also really, really good. You can edit at the same time you're listening to something, which I always took for granted, but most DAWs digital audio workspaces don't allow you to edit while you're listening. So you can actually shift things in real time. You can have unlimited number of audio tracks going on at the same time. My average is like 70 something. You can apply effects chains to individual tracks. You can create bus systems. So this series of tracks now has these effects applied to them, or these chains like increasing and lowering volume. It's just really robust. It's also really cheap and doesn't require a key to be in your computer at all time to authenticate the software. And it has a number of really great built-in features, like effects chains, musical instruments, sound effects, things of that nature. And it also works really well with Melodyne and Contact, which are softwares that I happen to really love for music, but also for podcasting.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's made by Acoustica.
Yeah, it's again, super obscure. Almost no one I know knows what this is, and they kind of look at me funny when I say Mixcraft, but I've played in Reaper. I've seen demos, really robust demos of Pro Tools, and for the price, it's basically as good as Pro Tools, with the exception that you can't do the cloud shared edit, so 2 people can edit the same file on the cloud at the same time. Basically, that's the one thing this doesn't have that I've seen, and it's a lot cheaper. It's only $100 and something bucks, and usually on sale.
That's interesting. Yeah, Acoustica. I just recently tried a plugin made by them. Made by them in conjunction with another company too. But anyway, again, this is 4 months later, so I probably already talked about that, and, or did a daily goodie about it.
But yeah, I really like it. I've used it for years, since they were in Mixcraft 4, which was pretty buggy. The latest one, 8, is solid, and I've had no problems with it. It's even when it crashes, it creates an automatic backup of the recordings you've made and in a folder, even if you don't have any other way. There's always some sort of recovery and backup recovery and autosave. It just has so much of that built in, which is invaluable in what we do in editing. Because when you lose it, it's gone. And it's a huge pain to redo it.
Yeah. Okay, so you use you said you use the Mixcraft software to record, but then you do your mixing in Reaper, right?
Yeah. So to clarify, I've got a workflow where I do all the editing in Mixcraft. So I will put in sound effects, I will put in reverb, I will record things, I will literally get everything except the final mix. Then I export as a stem export. So each track is exported as its own MP3 or WAV. I export in WAV because it's sort of the generally accepted practice by many. I submit that over to our mixing engineer, Brandon Strader, who lives in Weirden, West Virginia. And he does the mixing in Reaper because that's what he was raised on and loves so much. And he does a mix through Reaper that he sends me the MP3s to, and we go through a couple of back and forths till we get the revision of the perfect MP3.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, so the stem mix, I just want to explain what the stem mix is if anyone doesn't know or isn't familiar. When you're in a multi-track DAW software, and let's say you have 10 tracks, and you want to do exactly what Travis is doing. You want to do a bunch of stuff and do some mixing yourself and put, drag and drop all the tracks into the right spot and all that, the timing and the pacing, and right, you get it all right. And then you need to send your files to someone else, but you want them to have the multi-track that you have. A good way to do it is you make a stem mix, and what it does is it, instead of mixing it down to a stereo, let's say left and right, it'll actually output each of those 10 tracks separately into its own WAV file in this case. And you're right, yeah, always work in WAV until the final MP3. But so then those 10 tracks, Travis's mix engineer can load them into his DAW, into Reaper, and then all the work that Travis did is there. And it's the right timing, it's the right everything is exact. And now the mix engineer can tweak it more and mix it, and for sound purposes, right?
And to clarify, Reaper, Pro Tools, and Mixcraft all have a feature where you can stem export. Again, that's the same start point, the same stop point on all your tracks with a single click of a button, and you can name them however you like without having to actually go in and rename each track. But you can actually set up parameters for that, which is a time saver and a huge time saver. That was one of the things that actually drew me to Mixcraft initially back in the day.
Interesting. Yeah, and I've often thought of, like, for my podcast production clients, like if I ever wanted to hire someone else to edit some clients' shows or even mix my shows, like I thought of, again, laying out the session in my DAW and then just run the stem mixes and send them the stems, and then they just got to load it in. And they all you got to do is start every track at 0 and they all line up. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's a very common practice in music, but not so much podcasting. And that's kind of where I got my footing in editing, was in the music side. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. Why shouldn't I do this here? Like, Strader knows how to mix things. He would be perfect for this.
Right.
I'm not very good at mixing.
So now how do you give instructions for the mix? Like, do you say, oh, here I want a lot of reverb and all that? Or is it sort of...
Yes. I have a huge thing with timestamps, and like, at this timestamp, they're in a big echoey room and they, faded in as they walk into the room. He knows a lot of... He's very intuitive, and he knows a lot of the things about our show because he's been doing it for 4 years with us. But I do have to put in notes on, like, okay, let's have this track sound like it's through a filter. So if we have the same person speaking, I'll put them into 2 separate tracks, and then I'll name one of them like through a radio filter, or, I won't label it if it's not through a filter of any kind. But so I will do that for some things, and also give timestamp notes on, like, be sure to make this part extra gruesome.
Right.
So stuff like that.
So besides laying out the episode in Mixcraft, do you add any effects, or do you do any processing in Mixcraft before you send it to your mixer?
I do a little bit of panning. I will do a lot of EQ because not every microphone sounds like it's in the same room. So my goal is to make everything sound like it's in one place. So I'll add a little bit of reverb to every track to make them all feel like they're in the same space. And then, but a very small space. and then he adjusts it to be a larger space if they're outdoors or if they're suddenly in a bathroom, locked in a bathroom, being chased by zombies or something. So whatever is happening in a macro sense, that's his work. If it's filters, I might sometimes handle, again, like if there's a distortion through a radio filter, that can sometimes be me. Sometimes he has better stuff than I have. So it just comes down to what we have available and who has the better technology on that.
I see. And you brought up stereo and panning. So is each track, do you render the stem in stereo?
For the stems, we do stereo. I just have to tell him beforehand. So I label the stereo track stereo so he doesn't freak out.
Got it.
Because if someone's walking in a direction, I don't want their footsteps coming from the right and them walking in from the left and talking. So I have to make sure that's all pre-done. Either I'll do it or I'll put it in notes for him to do it if I ran out of time.
And the little bit of room reverb you add to most of the voices, do you print that separately or do you print the reverb on the individual tracks?
I print the reverb on the tracks. It's, again, really minimal. It's just designed to make sure that all the actors sound like they're in the same space.
Got it.
That's really all it is, because they aren't all using the same microphones in Iceland, LA, Germany, and Finland. It gets a little bit dicey sometimes.
Right, I get it. And then, right, if you're using just a little bit of like small room reverb, then you could add a bigger reverb later, and those two reverbs wouldn't really like clash, right?
Yeah, the reverb I add is almost unnoticeable. It's just to give a sense of space, and because some of the people record so dry, it feels like they're in a box. And
got it.
For him to apply reverb over all the tracks in an area, it's easier if they're all more or less in the same space, occupying the same space, because we're only as good as our weakest microphone.
That's interesting. Yeah, a while back I started messing around trying to add like a little bit of delay and a little bit of reverb and even a little bit of distortion to each speaker in the podcast that I'm producing. So, it's just a podcast interview, and I would have like, an effects bus or an effects track where I bus all the voices, and then I'll just add all bunch of reverb and delay and, just like a really short slapback delay, like really short, like literally 2 or 5 milliseconds. And then I would just add a little bit of that underneath. And I just because I was messing around, right? Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And it sounded fine, but I don't know. I don't know. I didn't want to use too much because I didn't want it to be really noticeable. And so I had to use so little that I was like, why even bother? So I just stopped doing it.
For me, it's just also in editing, when I'm editing stuff, it really helps when you can hear a little bit of reverb on the voices, so you can feel like they're actually in the space that you're creating. So you're like, okay, they're not in a studio and I have ambience on top of them in a studio. I actually feel like they're outdoors at a carnival or they're on a boat. Right. So for me, it's just, again, super minimal, but as an editor, it just helps me make it feel more real while I'm editing. So I can feel like, oh, okay, their performance is what's out of whack. What doesn't feel real here is really what my job is to identify before it gets to the mixing phase. Like what elements of our performance or sound design don't make you feel like you're actually standing next to them.
Okay, so when you get your mixes back, when you get the final mix of an episode, you already said that you usually go through 2 or 3 revisions. So when you get the first mix, what is your process of listening to it? Because when I was working at Soundtrack in New York and Jeff Buckley was there mixing his Grace album, and my good buddy Bryant Jackson was the assistant on that session, and Andy Wallace was the engineer. So awesome. Just happy to be in the same building as all those people. One thing that Bryant told me, who was the assistant engineer, who was also my roommate, he told me that one thing Jeff told him was that when Jeff listened to rough mixes, he would listen with his headphones and he would just kind of lay down and just sort of veg out. And if he could listen to the whole song without anything like jumping out at him, then he kind of knew it was almost the perfect mix, right? Because that's when you're listening to a mix, if it's wrong, it'll jump out at you and you'll be like, oh man, I got to turn that down, or ooh, that's not right, or that's or like you said before, they're supposed to be screaming over the wind, and they're like, "Oh, it's so windy," and it's like, oh, that's just not right. So what is your process of listening to that first mix and deciding what needs to be fixed?
It's usually infinitely more stressful than relaxing on a bed and listening with my eyes closed. So realistically, I'm probably 6 hours from deadline and freaking out. And I've got my DAW open. So Mixcraft is open and I have my whole session in front of me, and I will drag and drop the MP3 on top of my session. And I'm listening for nuances that need to be present. And it's largely just volume changes. There are very few times where I'll say, oh, you put the wrong echo or reverb on this person. He's very good about that. And we're very in sync with what those effects should be. So more often than not, it's like, okay, that gunshot sounded like it was a room away. Let's make it closer. Or, oh, this person talking is in the other room. So we need to apply a filter, a low pass, to make sure that they sound like they're in another room or behind a door. But more or less, it's like, okay, just boost this by 5 dB, lower this by 7 dB. Here's a timestamp. Here's the track. So I give them the track number and the timestamp from blank to blank. It's like at 7 minutes and 33 seconds to 7 minutes and 35 seconds, lower Chris screaming from Fractal by 4 dB because it overpowered the entire scene.
Right.
So it's a lot of that. And I'll give him like a text document in Dropbox, and he'll see that and make notes accordingly and adjust them. Usually as I'm entering the notes, he'll be making the fixes, and we'll have another mix about 40 minutes after I'm done with my last note. And then we'll do the whole thing again about 2 more times, typically. And then we'll have a final mix, run it by the writer, who also says like, oh, this is a thing that I had not envisioned, and we need to change this. And we'll make those adjustments too, but they're usually less frequent from her.
Okay. And you really do it within the last 6 or 8 hours of publishing? You do all this every 2 weeks?
Almost. I had an episode 6 minutes late because I was waiting on the MP3 to render.
Oh my goodness.
So we get pretty close for the White Vault because there just so much goes into the episodes. Like there was a 2-minute scene that took me 8 hours of recording to get the eating sounds, and they got attacked, and there's monster, and someone's getting pulled away from the microphone, but they're holding the microphone. So I need the sounds of the bumping of the microphone against the ground to sound real without sounding too real and ruining the audio. And they can get really crazy. And I also have a full-time job, and Strader is a full-time job. And so this is our full-time job on top of our full-time job making this. So it can get crazy. Right now, we're happily 1 week ahead of schedule, and I'd like to keep us there.
Oh, good. And how happy are you with the quality of the the mixes of the episodes so far? If I wasn't happy with it, we wouldn't be doing it. Got it.
I'm incredibly happy. There are our first season of our first show, Liberty. I go back and I kind of cringe, but it's less to do with the mix quality and the sound effects. It's more to do with I didn't put enough sound effects, and I wasn't a good director for acting.
Okay.
So I wish I could go back and like redirect these people and make their performances a little bit spicier. But it's less to do with the sound and mixing.
Wow. And so the actors you mentioned some of the countries they're from around the world. Do you always use, I guess you don't always use the same actors for each show. That's a dumb question. So, but for the White Vault, you have your stable of actors. Now, did you consult with each of them on like what microphone they're using and what room they're in and proximity to the mic and all that?
So we actually got that Rode sponsorship that I'd mentioned, and I mailed each of them a microphone and said, here, please use this and upgrade from what you're currently using.
Got it.
So that was like really cool. We've never done that, and we probably won't be able to do that again. That's like a one-trick pony, but it was really, really cool to upgrade the bulk of our cast in that way on the same day, midway through season 1. And prior to that, I was giving them like coaching advice, like, hey, could you put a blanket over your head while you record? Because I can kind of hear the bounce from your room. And then our poor guy in Iceland who loves the cold is now under a blanket, burning in negative 20-degree weather.
Wow. So what Rode mic did you send each of them?
They each got, no, they didn't get NTKs. They got the one that doesn't require...
NT1?
I believe it was the NT1. Each one of them got an NT1, and it's the unpowered version and the non-tube, but it's simpler and it's less room for error for those who are not as technically savvy, or I guess don't have a strong desire for tube mics.
Right. Yeah, but the NT1, that's a great mic. That's a great vocal mic in its own right, I think.
It really is. We swear by it, and the quality is good, but also it's easy to use, and it fits a variety of spaces. So you can use it in different rooms. You don't require like an amazing recording studio. You can do it in a closet. You can do it in a living room if you have the right setup. Like I'm like, oh, could you put a carpet in front of you when you record? Just like hang it on top of a ladder or something. We get creative, and that really allows us to create the illusion of this story taking place, that you're hearing these actors who are supposed to be in the same room who've never actually met each other.
Right. And what interface are your actors using? Are they all using the same interface?
They're all using a variety. Some of them have been using Audacity. Some of them have been using, I think, even Cakewalk. But I don't know all the interfaces that they use. I just know that I get the MP3, I get the wave from them, and I'm happy with the result.
Well, interface, I mean in terms of like you're using a 6i6, yeah.
Those who are using the Rodes all have Scarlett 2i2s.
Got it.
And they're again wonderful. They've got the second gen 2i2s, and they're even smaller,
right,
and durable as all hell.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about now when you go outside or you go on location to record sounds, and you either have your H4n or your H5n, which are both made by Zoom, of course. Now, how do you prepare for that kind of a recording session? Like just talk me through how you prepare, what you bring, and what you always make sure to do, those kinds of things.
So typically, if I'm going out into the field, I'm going to record a specific sound, and it's not wind related, because I hate recording wind. It's the most difficult thing besides footsteps and wind. So I'll be like, okay, I'm going here to record the sound of this really squeaky fence that sounds like someone's being murdered every time you open it. Or I'm going to record the sound of a waterfall in Iceland. Or I'm going to record the sounds of these amazing waves, off the shore again of Iceland that are so deadly, they'll pull you right into the water and kill you if you get caught up in them. So I go with the intent. I make sure to bring anything I can to bulk myself up so I can physically act as a wind blocker in case it's a windy day. Because I live in Portland, and it's a very windy city from time to time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, surprisingly. Not as bad as hurricanes, but you get a lot of wind, and for recording, it's very windy. But for regular people, not as much.
Got it.
And I'll go kind of strategically and prepare for the sound that I need to get, and get on site, record it, and get out. Because oftentimes it's in the public, and people kind of start looking at you funny when you're holding this thing that looks like a small Wookiee in your hand.
Yeah. And what resolution do you record at?
Same as the show, 441, and
24 bit or 16?
24, I believe.
Yeah, probably 24.
I set the standards, and then I haven't looked at them since. And with actors, I always give them like a copy paste of like, please record at these standards so that we don't screw up the bit rate.
Right. And how about batteries and stuff? How do you manage batteries?
When you get in colder places, you need extra batteries. That's the cold drains battery life really quickly. I'm talking like 5 minutes quick. You can be through an H4n's battery if you have like standard Duracells. Wow. Just because, and they come back to life. You just need to heat them up. But when you get into cold spaces, which the White Vault is all about, Arctic horror, you need to be ready on hand with spare batteries. Probably keep them in your pocket to keep them warm. That always keep spare batteries.
Right. Yeah, and what I always do, and I always tell my clients or anyone, when you go on location to record, I don't care if you think you just put in new batteries, you put in new batteries. Period. That's what I do.
Absolutely, and I kick myself for forgetting that one. But I typically don't record for very long. The longer stuff is usually ambience. Like I'll go into a cafe that doesn't play music to get some sounds of just background chatter. With like a menu in front of it. So I'm not really catching what they're saying, but I'm just catching the sounds of voices, if that makes sense.
And since you're sort of paying attention to ambient noises, do you ever find yourself just like out hiking or out doing anything anywhere and like, but not recording, just you're out, just being a human being. And then you just kind of like, oh, I wish I had my recorder with me.
Yeah, actually, exactly. That happens more often than you'd think. At pretty much every dog walk, I'll hear a sound somewhere on our block and be like, man, I wish I could have caught that weird trash compactor sound, or someone's drilling nails into their roof, and this would sound really cool for something. So it's a regular happening.
I bet in like some audio production schools for drama that they just probably, as an exercise, they probably give the students like 10 sound effects, like just 10 random sound effects, and say, okay, create a 3-minute drama using all these as sound effects.
I believe that. This like the 48-hour guerrilla film competitions sort of do similar things with lines of dialogue. I could totally, and props. I could see that happening.
Oh, do you know Rick Veers?
I was supposed to be on a panel with him, but he wasn't at the panel at PodFest just last month. He said in the far future, in March.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this year.
Yes, this year. But I don't know him. But he seems like, I've heard great things about him. I just haven't got to meet him yet.
Yeah, he's up to great things, and of course he wrote a book called, I think it's The Sound Effects Bible, and many others. And he has a bunch of sound effects. What do you call them? Libraries? Yeah, libraries. And he also has a TV show. What is it? The Detroit Chop Shop or something? Where they do sound effects and stuff. Anyway, Rick is,
I didn't know that one.
Amazing. Yeah. Anyway, I was wondering if you know him. Oh, that's cool.
No, I don't believe I do. I'm also face blind, so I'm very auditorily inclined because I can't physically recognize faces of people I meet. I have a disability that doesn't allow me to do so.
Really?
Yeah, it's called prosopagnosia. It's really extreme in me, and I also have almost no visual memory of anything. I know what shapes should be, but I don't really know like anything more than that.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of that. So you'll meet people, and then like if it's like 2-3 years later, you'll meet them again, and you don't remember what they look like.
Well, I don't remember what I look like, so it's a little more extreme than you're thinking. If you showed me a picture of 5 bald white guys, I wouldn't know which one was my father.
Really?
Yep. It's
Wow.
pretty bad. I have to work off things like posture and context and clothing and other stuff, but I don't recognize faces at all. It's just a mess for me. But I've lived with it my whole life, and I thought everyone did. But surprise. Okay. So it's kind of cool, because I would like to think that not being a visual person has allowed me to be a little bit better at audio, and I have to pick up on those cues a little bit faster.
Yeah. Oh, well, I hope that hasn't... I hope have you sort of accepted the fact that you have that and everything's okay with it? You're okay with it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
I'm entirely okay with prosopagnosia, and it's just interesting and unique. And I was very surprised that not everyone had this condition, because I thought I was just normal.
Right.
But no, it actually would make the premise of a great horror story. I just haven't written it yet.
Right, I was gonna say, because if there was some like an evil person who knew, then they could like just come to your house every day and just talk to you as if they met you for the first time.
They witnessed a murder, but could you figure out who the murderer was? Things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could actually have a lot of fun with it, and I'm totally fine with my condition. Absolutely fine with it. And I do secretly think that I have an edge on audio because of it. So I like to think of it that way.
Yeah. Well, think of Stevie Wonder, right? I mean,
exactly.
Just a ridiculous talent in terms of audio and music. And I mean, I was shocked. I never knew that he had ever played the drums until like maybe 5 years ago. And I saw a video on YouTube of Stevie Wonder literally rocking out like you've never seen on a drum set.
I have not seen it, but I have to look it up.
Oh man, just tremendous. That's it, tremendous. Well, but he is a very special person, right? There aren't that many special people to that level. So,
an absolute legend, yeah. And I actually, Stevie Wonder, I happen to know someone who's drummed with him a few times. Phil Robertson. I worked with him on a couple of projects. Really nice guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's the studio drummer, and he records things for people at a very fast turnaround, and he's one of the best.
That's cool. I really respect studio drummers because they are the real deal. I mean, that's like when you can learn a song in like 5 minutes and then basically perform it flawlessly. That's amazing. I was never that good. I was a drummer for many years, but I was kind of a hack. I wasn't really, classically trained.
Well, you say that, but all musicians, many musicians are just, we're faking it till we make it.
Right. Yeah. I'm okay with it now. I used to think I was good. I mean, I didn't think I was the best, but I thought I was good. Now I listen back, and literally like last week, I was trying to find a song. I wanted to post a song online and say, hey, look, this is a song I did with a band 21 years ago, right? Or something, right? I just had that thought, and I went back and I started listening to my old bands and my old music and songs, and not one of them am I comfortable putting out there.
I know the feeling.
Oh.
As a 10-year musician, I definitely understand that feeling.
But I mean, it was never my thing. It was just for fun, really. Plus, back then I was indulging and imbibing and whatever else you want to say, call that. I don't know. So
you were having fun.
Yeah, a little bit of fun. That was before the meditation started. Okay. So so this is great. Well, I'm psyched to listen to the White Vault. And it's interesting. So every 2 weeks for 4 years you've been putting it out. So what do you have a plan? I mean, do you have like the storyline written out for like a long time?
So the beauty of this is I'm not the writer and I don't have to worry about any of that. But
sweet.
But my wife does. Caitlin has a story and a plan for it, and a number of seasons, and a beginning, middle, and ending. And we're not going to string you along. And to clarify, the White Vault has only been around for a year and change. I guess a year and a half. But our other productions like Legend of the Boar Knight and Liberty and others, actually Liberty's like 4 different podcasts have been around for quite a while. But yeah, we've got plans, and actually a new podcast we're about to premiere in May called Vast Horizon, which is going to be a lot of fun. Which actually will be, if we're lucky and we're able to pull this off, the first bilingual fiction podcast.
Wait, I gotta process that. Bilingual fiction podcast. So they're going to speak 2 languages on the show.
No, we'll have the show in both languages because the actors speak Mandarin, which is the Chinese primary language, and English.
Oh, guess what I've been learning for a few weeks using the Duolingo app.
Are you learning Mandarin?
Actually, yes, but I didn't learn the word yes yet. I know how to say ni hao.
That's awesome. I don't know a word of Mandarin, but I'm really honored to work with a really talented cast on the project. And the White Vault is also about to release a second story, like a side miniseries that takes place in 1700s China called Imperial. And similarly, there's Mandarin on that series as some Jesuits map out China on behalf of the emperor, which is an actual historical thing that happened, but ours is a little bit of a White Vault twist to it. But it is largely historically accurate with everything except the horrors that entails.
Okay. Yeah, and that reminds me of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which is one of my favorite movies ever. And
it's fabulous.
Yeah, and the fact that when I watch that, I always have to listen to the Mandarin and have English subtitles. Because you do have the option of listening to like English overdubs, and it's horrendous.
It's not the same.
Oh,
we just watched like the third Ip Man, and same thing. You have to watch Ip Man, all 3 of them, and you have to watch with subtitles, not dubbed.
Right? Yeah, the dubbing is. I mean, look, back in 1950 when they had to do dubs and things like I mean, I get it, but nowadays, yeah. So.
Oh, totally.
So, do you guys have another show in the works right now?
Just those 2. Vast Horizon is going to be pretty big. And again, having a large number of the cast who are bilingual and then having to recast it also in Mandarin is exciting and ominous. And I guess it'll be out by the time this episode is out.
Oh, wow.
But season 3 of The White Vault will be returning also in October. And we're excited to tell another chapter of that story starting in October as well.
So what do you put out every other week if if the season hasn't started yet?
So right now we're working on a series called Liberty Tales from the Tower. We've been working on this one for a while. This is our third season of Tales from the Tower. They're one-off horror stories, so you don't need to know any context of the ones before or the ones after. And they're largely based in technology. So things like an elevator that brings you to the wrong floor in a large tower, and suddenly you find yourself very alone, or technological mishaps, or the government uncovers a hole in the ground and they send people in to find out the strange phenomenon regarding that hole. Like they're weird stories, they're scary stories, they're short stories, they're under usually an hour and a half, sometimes even as short as 20 minutes. And they are a joy to produce because everyone is completely different. And we usually have different cast members and different feels. The most recent one was a theme park ride. So I got to record a bunch of roller coaster sound effects, for work.
Yeah, for work.
And that was an absolute blast. And we had to put a soundtrack so it feels like you're actually on a roller coaster and the cues getting ready to go on the roller coaster and things like that.
And so, wait, so your wife writes all these different shows?
Yeah, she writes a new show every 2 weeks. And then I have to produce it. But she gives me the scripts well in advance. And she's currently working on the finale of Vast Horizon right now, which I'll have about a month to produce most of April.
Wow, very cool. Well, Travis, we're gonna wind things up, but at the very end, you have to yell "Sound great" with me.
Okay,
you willing to do that?
I'm willing to do that.
You're gonna yell. You can grunt. You can yell. You can do other stuff too. You can be original.
Okay. I'll be original.
But
I'll be a monster. I'll do it I'll do it on one of my monster voices because I'm all the monsters in our shows. I have to do those voices.
Sweet. So Travis Vengroff, everybody, check out Fool and Scholar Productions, all your different shows, the Liberty Podcast, Dark Dice, the White Vault, and all the new ones coming up. The links will be in the show notes, and I'm psyched for you. I'm really happy that you're not only creating, interesting stories and interesting podcasts, but that people are resonating with it because a lot of people listen to your shows, man. So congrats again on that.
Well, thank you. And I'm psyched to, again, this is an awesome interview, and I always love talking tech.
Yeah, that's cool. So, all right. So everybody, thanks for listening. Check out all the links in the show notes. We'll be with you again next week. And of course, I want you all to yell "Sound great" at the end as well. Wherever you are, I don't care if you're in the library. I want you to stand up and yell when me and Travis yell, okay? All right. Here we go, Travis. Go ahead, yell. Sound great!
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah!
I did the
yeah! Oh, wait! The music stopped again! Oh! This happened last episode. All right, well, we're going to start it again, and we're not going to talk over it this time. But thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
What the you Does it mean it's still the same? You're pushing me away. You worked your theories now where you getting worked up on your now. You work your way around somehow now. Yes, it hurts me